Hello, everyone. Howdy, and welcome back to another AppSmith episode. How are you doing? Kevin Blanco here, Senior Developer Relations Advocate here at AppSmith, and your trusty guide to unlocking the potential of internal enterprise apps. Today is Friday, which means it's Tech Workshop Friday. That's right. We're going to bring Joseph into the table, and he's going to start doing some of his crazy stuff, and you're going to learn about a lot of AppSmith from him. Before we jump into Joseph and whatever he has prepared for us, let us know in the chat where are you tuning in, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel because we have a lot of series, episodes, and a lot of content prepared for multiple tracks, intermediate, beginning, advanced. So I know you're gonna love all of the content we're gonna be publishing. So without further ado, let me bring Joseph into the table. Let me see where he is at. All right. Yeah, Joseph. We're live, man. Joseph, we are live. All right. Well, let me see if I can call Joseph. Joseph,
All right.
Joseph, man, we're live, man.
What? Oh man,
Bro, we're live.
dude, I'm sorry, I lost track of time. Give me just a minute to get set up, guys. We'll get the live coding going. I'm sorry.
I bet you're playing the Super Bass track,
man.
right? Yeah, I knew it.
The new Super Bass album. I can't get it out of my head, man. Sorry, I lost track of time. We'll get the show going here in a second. Just give me a minute to get set up.
All right, I'll give you a second, man.
All right. Sorry about that, man. I had to get one more jam in. Lost track of time.
Are you ready now? Did you take at least a couple of water or something like that?
Yeah. All right. So before we get into the topic for today's workshop, I want to take a moment to talk about these new Friday Tech workshops. We started last week and had a little rough beginning getting the stream going. So if you missed that, go back and check it out and let me know how much better we did today. So with these workshops, every Friday, we're going to have a tech workshop with a different topic. And it's always going to be Fridays at 10 a.m. It could be live coding, which is what we're going to do today. Or it might be previewing new features. Those may or may not be live. We're going to mix it up and always have something at 10 a.m. on Fridays. But it could be a Ask the Team event. We'll have Devrel and maybe even some of the engineers join us and just take questions from the community. And the last option here that we're looking at is a community show and tell. So if you're interested in submitting content, it can be a video, a tutorial, a template, whatever it is. If you want to submit content, then we'll collect those and have a specific workshop where we just demo things that the community has built. So for the submissions, meant to update this. It's not just for videos, but if you want to submit any content, tutorials or whatever, what you'll want to do is tag us, put it on LinkedIn or X, and make sure you mention AppSmith so that we see it, and add the hashtag AppSmithFTW for the Friday Tech Workshop or AppSmith for the win, whatever you prefer. But if we see any content on either LinkedIn or X and you tag us, mention us, and then use that hashtag, we're going to aggregate those and then highlight them during one of these workshops. So that's the format. Every Friday, we'll have some type of one of these, a live coding or community show and tell, previewing new features, or asking the team. So with that out of the way here, let's get to today's. Oh, one more thing. If you do submit anything online, if you mention us and you tag us, that's enough to get your submission in. If you also have your profile on the community portal and just let us know who it is, then we can send you some swag. We'll send you a sticker pack. Just make sure that you have your the safe way to send us your address is when you create your account on the portal. There's a separate tab for swag, for shipping info, and that part's private. That's just for us to be able to send you something. So if you're interested, anybody that makes any submission, you don't have to. There's no winning, there's no winner, there's no picking which one gets aired. If you just submit something, we'll be glad to send you some stickers for contributing something to the community. So, all right,
Before you jump into the next slide, I wanted to share with everyone what Joseph was playing. I bet you're probably interested in hearing because it turns out that Superbase has its own playlist on on Spotify. So
Yes.
If you wanna hear it, I think it's really cool that they're creating their own music. And yeah, go and check out the playlist. It was the same song at the intro and also what Joseph was playing, but there's other songs. So if you need to do, put some music while you're working on, I think they have great tones over there.
Yeah, good call, Kevin. Definitely. I've been jamming to it a lot lately. It's great background music when you're coding. It's instrumental, and that Quaid, that one that I was jamming to there, is real heavy. It's got some metal feel to it, so I was really getting into
Yeah.
it.
Hey, and actually, I have a joke for you. I know it's Friday; it's more like a casual thing, so I have prepared a
Okay.
joke for you. Do you know why was the low-code platform so popular at the party? Because it could connect with anyone without writing a single line.
All right.
Uh,
All right. I think that's enough horsing around.
yeah.
Let's get into the content here. So for today's live coding workshop, I got a side project I started about a month ago. I got pretty far on it and then just, got tied up with other things and haven't been back to it. So I want to add some new features to it. And I'm going to show you guys what I've built so far and then talk about kind of the parts of it I want to add. And then we'll jump into the live coding. And I'm not sure how far we'll get, but I am using OpenAI's API for the assistant. We have a native integration for OpenAI, but the assistant API is brand new, and that's not in our native integration. So I'm just using the REST API for that one. Actually, let me just show you. So I'm going to jump into a demo of how this works, and then we'll look under the hood and see what's actually going on. Okay, so there's this screenshot tool, screencast or showcode.app, and it's really cool. It has a free API, and so I used that, connected it to OpenAI's Assistant API, and I've got this this tool here that will generate a bunch of screenshots. So this says generate sample data for line items on the order of an order for PC parts with price and quantity, and then show me 3 examples of how to calculate the totals using a for loop, reduce, and then Lodash. So first, when I send this message to the OpenAI assistant, I have already set up an assistant that is expecting this type of prompt, and it's got a bunch of extra info about the format that I need and everything. And then it's generating some results here, and it's not quite ready yet. So check it again. It is calculating in the background, figuring out, some sample data and the code that would go with each screenshot.
Can you zoom in a little bit? Just it's better,
Oh,
yeah, so people can see it.
sure.
Thank you.
Okay. It can be a little slow. Let me refresh and send the prompt to start over here. So you send the prompt, and this assistant, let me zoom in on this one too. It says your job is to write some JavaScript code and to give me just the raw code, and then I'm going to convert them to screenshots. So I'm like explaining to the assistant that I just want back an array with a title, a language, and then a string for the code. Let's see if this finished yet. There we go. So I think the first time the page had just been sitting there too long, and maybe the refresh token was expired or whatever. So I have a title. This is the sample data slide. This is the language, and it is array of items here with some prices that we quantities. And then it gives me back the couple of options here of how we can calculate the totals. So now I'm going to take that and send it to this showcode.app API. And so that's generating each one of these and caching the results. It's not saved yet. It's just in the browser. And then lastly here, let's see, this one's PC parts. So I can save all of these to a new row here in Baserow. And I'm using their API, which allows you to upload files. Last week we did we were working on a video about Airtable and their API. There's some limitations with that you can't upload a file directly. You have to upload it somewhere else first and then get the URL and then send it to Airtable. Well, Baserow lets you upload files directly to their API. And so that's what I'm doing here. So that's the general use case, is that I send it a prompt. It generates the raw text. I get all the images and then save it to Baserow for now. There's this this social automation platform called Buffer that'll let you like push data to a bunch of different platforms, and they have an API. So considering maybe that is the end goal. But for today, what I'm working on is a couple pieces of this I want to fix. I've got an adjustment for the width here, and this is a parameter for the showcode API. And there's a bunch of different parameters here. I'm only messing with a few of them, basically taking the defaults as they are. And there's just a couple parameters that I change. Now, the width, some of these are all pretty consistent. The code is about the same width. And so having the image the same width isn't necessarily a problem. But some of my examples come back and one of these is really wide and narrow, and the other one's got all this extra space around it. And so I realized that this width parameter needs to be at the row level so that I can just adjust this one image. And because like right now, let's say this one's getting a little too close to the edges, right? And I could say, we'll make them all 800 pixels. And it works, but then it only fixes this one, and then this one's zoomed out now, right? So that's one thing I want to add today. The next is, you notice when I went to add this message here, and then I had to wait and keep clicking check results. So I want an async function so that when I add a message, it is just checking for me until that condition is met, until there's something there. So that would be the next thing. And lastly, if one of these images needed adjusted, I don't want to have to re-render the full set, but that's what I'm doing right now. I think it's still good to get them all at once for the first shot, but then if I only need to adjust one, as it is now, I'm going to have to regenerate all of them. So yeah, I think that's everything that is like kind of currently built in the parts that I want to try to build on top of today. So we'll switch here in a minute to the actual coding and show how it works. Before that, though, I just wanted to show a few things here on showcode. And I think I have a link for this here. Give me a second. Here we go. So this is an open source platform. I looked at a bunch of different code screenshot tools, and there's a few other open source ones, but honestly, this one had the best tool itself, the best experience, and it's the only one I could find that had a free API. And like, this is just like a side project fun thing I'm doing, right? So I wasn't about to like do a paid service for it just to tinker with it, but ended up liking it so much. I reached out to the dev, and I'm supporting them on GitHub now. So huge shout out to Steve Bauman. If you're on Product Hunt or GitHub, check it out. This is the app itself here, and I'm showing it here on Product Hunt because there's like, it's just the app. There's like no landing page telling you about it. He's not trying to sell you anything. There's no tracking of any kind. Like I looked at the Product Hunt comments here on the launch, and where did I find that? The Steve, the lead developer here, talks about how there's no login, no watermark, no ads, no analytics. He's never tracking your data. It's just a really awesome free tool. So huge shout out to Steve for making this open source. And I wanted to make sure that we really show like how to find this, so that the showcode.app is the tool itself. But if you're interested in supporting him on GitHub, it's Steve Bauman. And there's also so this is free, but there's a desktop app. If you want an installed version of it, then there's a paid version there. So not affiliated with them. I just think it's an awesome tool. I found it, started tinkering with it, and yeah, just wanted to support them. So, all right, Kevin, should I keep going? We ready to roll into the coding?
Yeah, let's keep going. There's some questions on the chat, but not related to your conversation. So I'm talking over there with the people.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, let's jump into it.
Cool. So maybe we'll do the async thing first. So let's look at what happens when I click this button. Get some more room here. I'm zoomed in, so I want to find a good balance between letting you guys see everything and having room to work here. The button add message. So I have a query, post request called add message, and we'll go to the queries here. And so this just says, here's a message object. The role is me, the user, and the content is that input. And I have my input like a default here, default text, so I don't have to keep typing it. So this is my test case basically, and I've ran this 100 times, but if I want to put in a different prompt here, this is where it's pulling it from. So once that message gets added, the response, you know what, I have to back up to show you something that this connects to. I'm adding the message to create thread.data.id. So that has to already exist in order to add a message. So create thread settings. This API runs on page load. In order to create a thread with the Assistant API, I have some auth headers here because I've set up a data source, but there's no other parameters. There's no body. It just says, hey, I want to start a new conversation. And so when you do that, it gives you back an ID for that thread. And I have this API set to run on page load so that there's an ID there for me to reference as soon as the user wants to add a message. So, okay, that was the part I skipped over. We add a message, and that comes from that input, and then it's responding. It's thinking, but the data that I want is not there yet. So I want a function that runs another function at a certain interval repeatedly until some condition is met. And the condition thing here will be the kind of tricky part. I can write a function on an async to just use a set interval and to keep calling the get run, I think is the one that's checking for the messages. Let's see. But the tricky part is figuring out which condition tells me that it responded. I think what we'll do is use the role. So if the last message came from the assistant instead of the user. So here, yeah, it is get run. To check the results, you run get. It's a get request, and I called it get run. And that you have to create a run. And let's see, add message. So you add a message to the thread, and then you have to run the thread. If you want to add another message, you have to run the thread again. So I don't think I showed the callback on that. Right here, when you add a message, there's a callback. So on success, it adds a message to an existing thread, the thread that was created when the page loaded. And then now that the message has been added, it doesn't reply immediately because you might add another message and another. You could send it a message from you, and then you could send it a message that's supposedly from the assistant, even though you wrote it. You just say like it's like your assistant role or whatever. So like that array of messages, it doesn't read it and instantly respond. You have to tell it to run the thread again, and then that doesn't respond. With the data, you have to get the run. So there's lots of kind of juggling, throwing the IDs back and forth. Like get this, get back an ID. You got the response. Okay, hit this API. So it's kind of a juggle of 3 or 4 different APIs before you get to seeing the actual response that we want here in the table. And then this table is not its direct response. It's not the full and complete only response from the assistant. It is the part of it that is the code that I want, which is in this format. And so you see how this is kind of hidden? I'm using the disabled state here on the table, or the visible state. So if there's no data here in the getrun.data, then I'm just hiding this table. If there is data there, then the table data itself is coming from getData.run. You see that? I take the content that came back from getData.run. The first response text value that's its raw response, which is wrapped in 3 backticks for a code block, because it's coming back as like it wants to respond to me with code, but it can only respond in text. And so it's stringifying the JSON and putting the backticks around it. So this regex finds that exact chunk of its response, which I know can be parsed into valid JSON. And that's what gets displayed in the table, not the actual direct response from here. All right. I think that explains that part. Now I'm trying to figure out what we want to look at next. I don't have any. I do have a JS object in here. So I already have some async functions. I have one that requests all of the images and pushes them to this images object. I guess not pushes because it's not an array, but I'm putting for this title into this images object. Here's the data. And so it loops through all of the rows of the table and saves the results of the images into that object. This parses the assistant response for me, although I don't think I'm using that because I just showed in the table where I'm redoing this. So I'm doing it in line over there. Let's see, the request an image. So this wants the data as base64. And so I'm just doing a conversion of it here. I think maybe the API has given it back to me as binary. And then I'm just a quick conversion here to make it base64 to binary. And then uploading all of the images to Baserow. So this is a for loop that goes over each row and awaits the upload so that I can get the response from Baserow, which has a name for the file. And it's basically the bucket like URL or whatever, the file path at the end. And so you take that name and you want to save it back to the row in Baserow so that the image is attached there, right? So you have to async, upload it, wait for the response, get the name, and then attach that to a row. Create row.run here at the end of uploading all images. This is a loop, for loop right here. So the loop ends. It's doing this once for every image in the table. And when that's over, it does a single create row in Baserow that attaches all of those images. So, all right, I think I've showed all the pieces of this of how it works now. And I want to write the async function that keeps checking for a response from the assistant so I don't have to keep clicking the check message. So I want to start a new JS object instead of adding it into this one, just to keep it clean here so that we're only looking at the new stuff I'm doing. It's going a little slow because I'm streaming. Let me try it again. Oh, first error. All right. So give me just a second. Let's I'm going to just exit the app here and come back. We'll see if that does it. Okay, I don't know what's going on there. Got a new JS object, and I want an async function that calls another function on an interval until some condition's met. So that I click add message, and there's actually that callback that has to run the thread, and then you got to keep calling get run to see if it's done yet. So first, I'm just going to do a function here that shows an alert. That's going to be the thing that, like our test case. Oops, what did I do there? All right, we have a function called show alert, and it will just alert. Why is it not doing show modal? Interesting. Where's show alert? Okay, I'm going to use show modal then. I don't know why show alert should be a thing. Show alert. Seems like it just wasn't showing the autocomplete. And this takes a parameter that's like what type, info or warning. Yeah. Okay, it didn't show in the autocomplete. It is working. I have a function that shows this test alert. Okay. Now I want a function that calls this function on an interval. So set interval. And what do you want to do on an interval? We have a function right here in JS Object 2 called show alert. And then the interval that we want to run it on is every 100 or every 1,000 milliseconds, every 1 second. is maybe going over the top of itself, so I can't see it. Oh, I know. This is just, I want an arrow function. And then in this function, we'll tell it to call that. Maybe that's what I need. There we go. Okay, so I can't just put the name of the function. I actually have to have a inline function there to call it. All right, now it's just going to keep going forever. So I need a way to stop it. So we'll have a condition that it's checking. And this condition here, we set the interval. And at some point, we want to clear that interval. That's the way that you make it stop. You can clear the interval, but it needs a name in order to clear it. So the ID number interval ID. Yes. You have a callback function. Then you have the duration, like how the interval of how often you want to call it. And then it needs a ID in order to refer to it in the next one to clear the interval. So I'm just going to call this timer. And that's going to keep running until we clear it. So let's just make a clear timer function. Clear interval, which is named timer. And now this one should keep running forever until something clears that interval. Okay, so that much is working. Now the condition that should stop this from constantly calling get, what is it, get run? Okay, so it is giving me back an object, but there's no data. Now let's walk through this and look at the data when we have a response there. If I do the check right now, I'm hiding this table because it's not the assistance response that I want. Okay, the way that it sends back the data is an array of data, which has an object here, content. In the content, that's another array. It's really nested. And then somewhere in here, it's going to have an ID or the role here. The assistant is the role. And if I run it again, the most recent message will always be on top, or like the first index, the 0 index of the array. So we want to go off of that index to see if it is indeed a response that came back from the AI, or if the last message in the thread is still ours. So now this is our case. This is like the condition that we're looking for to be true is get run data here has a response that I just got back where the role is assistant. And I think the first time it was role was assistant, but it was blank. So I might need maybe two conditions that the data dot whatever role is assistant and the content isn't empty. So we'll figure out that condition after we get the function running on a loop. Let's put the real function in this place here instead of this one. So right here, the thing I'm going to run I don't want to do every 1 second. I'll do every 3 for now. And get run dot run. So this function is going to need to do more than just that, though. And we only want to run it again if we haven't gotten back the data from the assistant. So this is where the condition would go. And maybe the condition can just be that that we haven't got back a response yet. So if you haven't got back a response, run this, else clear the timer. That could work. So in get data, get run that data, 0, first item here, and then what is it? Content, that's another array. And its first element, text is an object. Maybe it's not in content. Is it role back here? Yes, that's what I want. If the role equals user, so if the last conversation, if the last message in that thread is from me, it's still thinking. It's still working on its response, and so I want to get data again. So we'll set an interval that says, how about if it's not equal assistant? Because it might be blank or null or whatever. Else clear the timer. And I have a function for that. I could just, yeah, I'll just do that. Okay. This might be it. I guess we can go ahead and test it from the UI. We'll see what happens. So instead of clicking add message, which has a callback to run the thread, I still need to add the message and run the thread at least once. But then on success of that, that's where I want to trigger this loop. So here's where I'll do that. This action chaining here is really convenient, and it's good to like 3 levels here. And then on the 3rd level, now you got to do your callbacks as just raw JavaScript. You know, it doesn't have the UI to keep nesting at that point, but still really useful. And if you need more than 3 levels, it's probably time to move it into code. So I'm going to keep this part where you click add message, it sends it to the thread, it runs the thread, and now that the thread has ran once for message add, now we just want to keep checking that get run. Oh, but not the query though. My function that's in JS object 2 that I should name. So this is the function that's handling that async for us. I'm going to rename that. Check run. Make sure that the reference changed, which it did. I renamed it, and that followed it here. It's still linked. Okay, moment of truth. I know it's going to add the message. I know it'll run the thread, and we already tested the async thing with a different function, so hopefully this works on the first try. I'm going to go ahead and deploy again. And should just have to add the message and wait. Let's see what happens. So it takes up to a minute, sometimes more. So while we're waiting, I'm not gonna look in the editor to see if we got any errors. We'll just give it a minute here and see what happens, and talk about what we're gonna try next. So if that's working, then I want to have some way at the row level of an individual screenshot and the text and whatnot to be able to have an input and adjust that pixel width. Still want to default, but if I have to change one of them, you know, I don't want it to screw up all the others. So I need like a number input in the table widget, and then we'll use the table dot edited row or whatever. And we're going to have to enable multi-row editing in the table widget. And once that's done, we can grab the values that the user has input from the pixel width, and we'll just use a default value if they haven't adjusted it. And I should be able to just adjust a single image and regenerate that one without having to hit the API again with like 5 requests. So it has not, it's not updated here. We may need to debug and do it in the editor. I think it would have replied by now. I can check it this way though. So it did still add the message to the thread and everything, but my async function didn't handle this for us. So let's look at the check results button, which runs get run, and JS here. This, if this condition is true, it should have ran. Oops, I'm gonna log this if I can type. Undefined. And I think that's because I just switched back to the editor and then that resets the API. So there is no role. That makes sense. But I want it to be true, not undefined. And so this is because I'm trying to access the role property inside of an array, which is not there. I can use optional chaining here for the role if there's an array. But if you're trying to access even more, then you end up having to do another check to see if the array there is there first. Let's see if just some optional chaining is enough here. So it's still, oh, true, there it is. So maybe that's all I needed. Is it still logging it? I think, is the interval running? Yeah, it is. Okay. So my condition to trigger it needed optional chaining, and now it should work. And it is working. It's triggering. It keeps coming back as true. I think it's go. Let's go ahead and try it again on the UI. So we'll try one more time here without watching it in the editor to see what happens and see if the table shows up here. If that doesn't work, then we'll start debugging in the editor, actually looking at the responses one at a time as each function runs. But this, like I said, takes almost a minute. It's pretty cool though. You can modify the prompt. I have it set up so that when I first get back the data, it's usually pretty close if I write the prompt well enough, but sometimes I want to adjust. Like say here with the PC parts, I think it was only giving me 3 items. And like, what if I wanted to add more parts and I want to see an example that has duplicates or, just some extra challenge for it. And so you can add a new message here and it will adjust all of the data that it's generated. And then I can regenerate the images to go with that. I'm going to give this just another minute here, but it doesn't seem like the async thing's working for us. So it is time to start debugging. Yeah, I should probably leave that show alert in there so we can watch it and know it's working. Add message, and then this happened. I wonder if that's it. So I'm going to refresh to wipe out those API responses, add the message. This has a callback function, which is an arrow function here. And it just says run that. Yeah, that looks right. So is that true now? Let's go check that same condition. Check out the logs here. And I'm only going to run that console log part. Commented out too much. Okay. Undefined again. Wait, now it's true. Interesting. Okay, so the very first time it goes to run, it's undefined. I could dig more on this and try to make it off of the optional chaining here, but I'm just going to add a condition if it equals undefined. Let's see if that works. Clear. First run is undefined, and then true. Okay, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to go with the a little more difficult, but the checking for the data first, and if it is there, then go into the array, because I think optional chaining doesn't work after with an empty array. Like if you're trying to look at something that's further down inside the array. So what I'm going to do is, if there's something here, if there is get run .data, and I could say if the array length is greater than 0, but that's kind of long to write out. A shorter way is to just flip it twice with the exclamation point here. So if it inverts it, if it's true it becomes false. Not falsy, but false. And then when you invert it again, now it's actually true. So if that's there, we use a ternary operator that says return get run .data. I had it on here a minute ago and I lost it. Oh, I have it right here. Okay, so a ternary operator that if this is true, if there is some kind of data there, then drill in down to the data.data is whatever, and then roll. Otherwise, false. So that's hopefully the condition that I needed here. It's true the first time instead of undefined. That could be it. Okay. Clear the timer. Run it again. Oh, the first one was undefined. Hang on. Clear. Okay, so instead of console login, we'll show alert so that we can watch it on the UI now and know if it even ran the first time from the UI. Checking info. Set interval. This is the function it's running on that interval, which is show an alert every time. And then if this is true, okay. If this exists, then the condition goes here. That's if this returns true. And I want to keep going until I get back a response from the assistant. So it's if this is true, else false. This might be it. Okay. So this safely checks for the data without hitting undefined. If there is data there, now look to see if the last, it returns them in order of the most recent. So if the 0 index role does not equal assistant, this will return true, which means it should run the function again, which is what I want. Okay, and now we'll see an alert So I'm not waiting forever. How am I doing, Kevin?
We're doing good. I mean, we're 46 minutes in, and from what I can see, we're learning how to debug, and that's super valuable because, like, not any app goes perfectly on the first one. So
I only got one alert. That's a clue, man.
that's a clue.
Is my condition opposite? Like it's only true the first time. So it's not checking anymore because I'd be getting the alert. And I'm giving away all my tokens here, but we'll delete those soon. All right. Let's see. Back to the JS. Okay, I was on this one. So it was definitely true the first time because we saw the alert. It did not equal assistant. Oh, that's right. I remember I looked and it had a role that said assistant, but it was blank. So I also need to check if this can be a big condition in one line here. But it was like to make sure that there was the data 0.content 0. Whatever. If I know people hate nested ternary operators and everything. Not actually nesting here. I'm just adding another condition, and it's getting really long to look at. So if it won't even try these checks unless this first part's true. So if I know there's some data there and this won't error out, then I can do that. And then the other thing I want to check is that also, and this. Oh, it's not there. I'll have to run it again so that content is there. And it was like text value maybe. I want to make sure that there's something in that as well. So that has to be true. And some extra question marks just to be safe. It definitely helps avoid the errors, but exactly where and the rules behind it and everything. Like I think it's just all the dots and then it doesn't work before an array. And if you need to use it after an array, then you've got to do this kind of check to make sure the array exists. So let's see what happens. It's at least valid. It's not giving me a syntax error or anything. Try it again. So add the message, alert. No, so it's, wait, okay, it is. I got an alert. It's 3 seconds. That's right. So there's the first one. 1, 2, 3. Is it going to go again? It's only true the first time again. Weird. Okay. So add the message now that the API response will be there. Because a minute ago, I was trying to bind to that path when there was no array again. Same problem we had before. What is in get run.data now? So there's the data array and then a content object. Okay. The entire data array has the same role, content, and then content 0 of this first object inside this array, dot text dot value, and it's blank. This is my condition that I want to check for. If data 0, content 0, text value is blank. And I thought that's what I had there. Maybe I'll only do that condition instead of trying to do 2. So we'll go back to here. Because I know my message is going to have text. So I guess going off of the condition that it's not empty could work. Let me just check the path here. And yeah, so it can see the path now because I ran it again. And the first time I typed this, it wasn't there. And so it was saying it didn't evaluate to anything. So if there's no data, the first exclamation says if there's no data there. Second is if this is true, then the condition, then return this condition, and that's our loop. That's if it's going to run again. Man, we got to be getting close.
You're circling it. Almost there. You're circling it.
Give me another alert. Come on. Ah. Oh, man. We're running out of time here.
You have 6 minutes.
Okay. I want an if condition right here that says to keep running this. And if I try to do it, let's get rid of the ternary. Maybe we can simplify this and figure out. There's going to be data. Like as soon as it runs get data.run, it always responds. So there's some kind of data. Yeah. Add a message, pop up. 1, 2, 3. There it is. Come on. Hey, oh man, I think we got it. Maybe just in time. So it's still checking. And as soon as there's text there, it should show up in the table. And clear the timer, hopefully. Unless we're just running alerts on a loop and that's it. Maybe that's the only part I got looping. It takes about a minute, so we'll give it a few more alerts here. It would be 20 of them every 3 seconds. You keeping count?
Come on, Joseph, you can do it.
It is slow, but
yeah,
it's not this slow. I think it's about time to run it manually here. What happens if I just run this one? So it's not really running get run. It is only looping the message. Because I ran it manually here and the data was there and it should have already shown it. It's progress, man. I got the loop working. If this is true, I should have ran it right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing the alert. It shows the alert and then the condition. So it's not true. Maybe I don't want to flip it twice if there's nothing there. Yeah. I think I just had it inverted. One, two, three, message. So loop's working, but the condition to tell it to run, get run again was, I think, inverted. Got a little carried away with the exclamation points. So this will be our last attempt. We're running out of time here. I'm going to give it just a few more checks here, and then we can wrap this up and talk about ideas for more of these workshops. Hoping this thing finishes for us just in time here, but it is not looking. Still missing something to invoke that during the loop, if that condition's met. Let's see if I run it manual, it's there. Yeah, all right. I think we showed how to do a async loop and quite a few other things here. I just didn't get quite as far as connecting that last little bit there. But Kevin, I think we're about out of time. So you want to maybe switch to talking about the workshops here. So we have several other ideas here for the workshops. If you want to submit stuff for the community, we would love to show everybody what you're working on. Again, just make sure you put it on LinkedIn or X @mention AppSmith and use the hashtag AppSmith FTW, AppSmith Friday Tech Workshop, or for the win. And we'll wait till we have a few of those, and then we can do an event just around that.
Yeah, totally. We encourage you to participate. At the end, all of these events is for you, and it's great to see what you're working on. And we would like to, showcase our heroes. Basically, understand everyone who's building amazing stuff with AppSmith, and so we can showcase to other community members what you're building. So yeah, tag us, use the hashtag, and we'll be more than happy to share that about with a broader audience, and also make sure to use all of those in this Friday Tech workshops, which, as you can see, are more like open conversations rather than having like a script or something planned. Joseph comes here and start doing his magic on code, and as you can see, is very valuable because most of the developers out there will have issues like the ones that he had today, have to debug, how to use the AppSmith debugger, how to figure it out, what's going on. So definitely, we do see a lot of value in these workshops on Fridays. So yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, appreciate everybody joining. I hope everyone enjoyed this. Feel free to reach out if you got any questions. Say comment, in the comments here. And again, shout out to Steve Bauman for the screenshot tool that we used today. Really appreciate that being open source. So check it out. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Yep, next week, next Thursday, the 15th, we have AppSmith AI, the AppSmith AI official launch. We will have our CEO and our CTO and a special guest to talk about AppSmith AI and how you can bring business value using our amazing new AI capabilities. And remember that this month topic is around AI. So submit your template that does something around AI. AppSmith AI is already available in the cloud version, so create your template, participate, win cool swag, and that's for the next week. And the following week, we're gonna have Joseph, sorry, to also talk about a live coding event that we're gonna have. We're gonna be publishing that event soon, but you can find all of the events on events.appsmith.com, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel because we just announced custom widgets yesterday, and we are about to publish a full series and guides on how to use custom widgets so you can bring and build something with React, with Vue, with Angular, with TypeScript, what have you, whatever library that you like, you can use now in AppSmith and build a completely custom widget from scratch. So we see you next week, and stay real. Have a nice weekend, and we talk next week.
All right. Thanks, everyone.